Hey Ron, just thought I'd go over the data real quick. I'm sure you've already looked at this, but yeah, I like the brick building, of course. Bank of America A minus credit rating. I think the risk is just I don't see any parking here on this deal. We can look into it, but when you look at the aerial, I don't see any parking behind it. Um, but Bank of America obviously I think likes this location and wants to be in this location for people actually to come into the branch. To me, this isn't like a high profile like marketing location where they want to just have a flag on the corner somewhere where people drive by and feel like their money is deposited. To me, this is a location where people actually go to get stuff done, and these guys obviously like the location as well because they've renewed a few different times. But I'm going to quickly scroll through here. Obviously, Bank of America A minus credit, Ace Cash Express is you got to be careful with these kind of payday lenders, and they're getting cracked down on in a lot of jurisdictions. But this one they're pretty big. Their credit rating I think reflects that risk of what's happening in the payday loan market. So I think that's kind of the hair on the deal is that tenant per se. Um, Obviously a good price, good cap rate. Um, Something to think about too is if you bought this cash, you could always refinance it tax free. Check with your accountant, but I've had clients refinance a month after buying a property and pull cash out, and you can do whatever you want with the cash. The IRS doesn't limit you, doesn't tax you on it, but most people tend to wait a year before refinancing a 1031 exchange. So this is just something to think about. You could refinance, easily pull out 350, 400, even more, 500, and buy another property. Do whatever you want with it. So that's just a thought. These leases, something to think about too, is that they are double net. So you would have CAM. You could manage this yourself, and then that money that 2,900 would go to you. Um, you could hire that out. Obviously, taxes, insurance, those are easy. Uh, we'd have to double check these water and sewer bills, why they're so low. They seem a little low to me. And then we'd also want to double check this NOI. Look at their total rent, and then actually go backwards and look at their true expenses and make sure this NOI is correct. Um, but here we are, middle of 2019 almost. So you have 20, 21, 22, 23, like 4 years or so on the lease, and you have more here, which I like. These rents to me seem pretty reasonable, pretty much anywhere in the country. They might be high for downtown Pittsburgh, but we could do some rent comps and see on this. I like the rent bumps here every 5 years in the lease, 10% of the options as well. No early termination clauses, which is great. And then we'd have to look and see if there's any expense caps on this, reimbursement caps. Just going to quickly go through here. If I go down to the aerial further down, and you might have already driven by the property, but um, can't really see it there. But I like the location with very dense, of course. 24,000 cars, 12,000 cars, and my data back that up, and I'll show you that in a minute. If you keep scrolling down, so we'd have to look and see where the property lines are and kind of what that area is behind um, the property and see. But I don't think there's any on-street parking, or excuse me, off-street parking, as you can tell because of the buildings. But then real quickly, my traffic count maps um, matches theirs. Oftentimes, listing brokers' data skews it on the high side, but my data is actually higher here and about the same here. So that's great. Demographic and income, I did run a 5, 10, and 15-minute radius, but with this kind of property, infill location, I think really all we're concerned about is the 5 minute location, because a lot of people are going to walk to this property or ride bikes. Not too many people are going to drive. Or if if they're driving, they're only going to drive 5 minutes max. They're not going to drive outside the area. But I like, it's fairly dense, 20,000 people in a 5 mile drive time. The area has got positive population growth, which is great, positive income growth, which is great. And I think here is the data that kind of shows you why there is a ACE, cash express here, because there are lower income um, population here, and that's who that business, that's their customers. But the average household income, 56,000, is really not bad. It's definitely on the low end, but some of the Dollar Generals or other cash advance deals I've seen are like 35,000 or 45,000 average household income. So 56,000 is actually a pretty good number. Per capita income is actually a little bit higher even than a lot of Dollar General locations. A lot of Dollar General locations will have a per capita income of like 16,000 or 21,000. So I think that's indicative of why, this is indicative of why there's an Age Cash Express, but then this is indicative of why there's actually a bank or Bank of America. Especially when you start to get into here, when you have several thousand homes, over $50,000 a year. So population by age, I'm just looking at this real quick. Good age range of people here. Decent racial makeup here. Not overly one race or the other. But I'll send you these by email, and you can take a look at these. Crime summary. This would be the only other kind of maybe hair on the deal or something to look at would be the total crime index is actually fairly low. So that's what I tend to look at, this 199 number. You can see how as it gets out further, like this is more Pittsburgh MSA, in 15 minutes starts to become a suburban. It's lower out here. But I would actually say 199 is pretty low. Consider, for such an infill location. What the biggest thing here is and this is common for cities. The personal crime index is higher, murder index is higher, rape is very low, robbery index is high. But that's when you get a lot of people in a big city, that tends to be high. But overall, it's fairly low. Like LA, New York City, etc. might be, Miami might be 300, 400, even 500 total crime index. So to me, 199 is actually a good, safe number. And something you could do is go drive by the property if you haven't already, walk by it, and I call it the heebie-jeebie feeling as to what's actually happening in the neighborhood and how it feels. And then this is something that's not so important for this property because you have a little bit longer term leases, and these aren't really retail locations. It could be a retail location, but I like to see green numbers on any building my clients purchase, because this shows you the area isn't quite met. Yeah, there's actually demand. Like you could put an auto parts store in there. There's another $1 million of room. Home furnishings, furniture stores could go in there. A hardware store could go in there. Little lawn and garden store could go in there. Jewelry, luggage, leather goods, that's actually a pretty low negative number. So that would be an opportunity. General merchandise stores like Dollar General or a drugstore, little retailers like that, just selling miscellaneous stuff. And even like an office supply store or a florist would go there. So I like to see these green numbers. And I'll email these to you. But here's the 10-minute drive time as well. So you do have additional gaps in these categories in the 10-minute drive time. I like this deal. I think it could work, and we should talk about it more. Hope this helps, and talk to you soon.